Hello everyone, and welcome to the introduction video for a new series I will be starting for ActRaiser 1. This game will not have a config tech or a modding video. I hope you enjoy the information and that it gives you the best ActRaiser 1 experience you can have. Any links that are covered will be in the description of the video. This game was developed by Quintet. Quintet was a Japanese developer that was founded in 1989 and based out of Tokyo, Japan. Their name is musical related as well as referencing 5 elements of game design Quintet strived for: planning, graphics, sound, programming, and producing. Quintet is known for games such as Soul Blazer, Illusion of Gaia, Terranigma, Robotrek, and ActRaiser. They have made some amazing and memorable games that have a timeless quality and polish to them. A developer that pays attention to all the various details of making a good game. It's unclear if Quintet is active or not, and to what capacity, as the Wikipedia doesn't label them as defunct or bankrupt. The company Enix published all of these Quintet games in the 90s. Now the company Square, which makes the Final Fantasy RPG games, merged with Enix to form Square Enix. So most likely Square Enix absorbed Quintet as well as the rights to their games. The games Soul Blazer, Illusion of Gaia, and Terranigma are part of a trilogy of games called the Soul Blazer Trilogy, or the Quintet Trilogy. This term was coined by the fans of the games and not the developers. I prefer to call it the Quintet Trilogy, and I feel that ActRaiser 1 should be included in here. You would be doing yourself a great disservice by skipping over ActRaiser 1 before you played Soul Blazer. All of these games were released between the years of 1990 and 1995, and only on the Super Nintendo. ActRaiser 1 was the first game, and a launch title coming out the same year as the Super Nintendo system. I only recently played through Soul Blazer, as I didn't know about it back in the 90s. It was a fantastic game, and I think I may like it more than ActRaiser 1 as a whole. It's almost unfair, though, to compare them together, as they are pretty different. All of the Quintet games are separate from each other, but are woven from the same ball of yarn, so to speak. Quintet's games consist of action RPG elements, while ActRaiser 1 deviates a little. They are story-driven games that have pretty heavy and dark subject matter. It may sound funny, but you learn about humanity, people, and the world when you play these kinds of games. You walk away having experienced an epic story, and it makes you think about things. If you've played Chrono Trigger or Final Fantasy 2 and 3 North American releases, you know what I mean. Playing these games as a teenager has a lasting impact on you, which is why they are classics today. Quintet's games deal with death, religion, and moral dilemmas, just to name a few topics. All the while you are saving the world from an evil presence, as you do in these games. Talk a little bit about censoring. I'm surprised that Nintendo let them go as far as they did with some story elements in these games. For example, in the US release of ActRaiser 1, you are referred to as the Master. The primary antagonist of the game is referred to as Tanzura. In the Japanese version of ActRaiser 1, you are simply called God, and Tanzura is the devil. Everything you are fighting is some kind of a demon. There are lots of devils and demons in Nintendo games if you think about it. It's just Nintendo doesn't want you to call them that, but it's still implied. Nintendo was more strict back then. Religious imagery and words sometimes had to be altered. As mentioned, ActRaiser 1 has platforming levels that you play. It also has a city building mode that you do in between. The closest thing to compare it to is SimCity, also on the Super Nintendo. I say that on the most basic of terms, though, just to give you an idea visually. The loose structure of ActRaiser 1 is as follows. There are 6 areas or lands in the game, 7 if you include the final area. In each area, you play an initial platforming level and kill a guard boss, so that your people can move into the area and live there. You go down into city mode and help the people develop and overcome problems. There you will encounter monster layers, which you have to destroy to keep your people safe. It's hard to build a farm when monsters are eating all of your animals and family members. Once you destroy all the monster layers, the last boss of the area will reveal itself. You play a second platforming level and kill the boss to purify the area completely. So in city mode, the story unfolds and world building happens, literally, and you help your people. In the platforming mode, you're kicking ass and taking names. I will explain this all again and better when we're playing the game. Given how unique the 2 gameplay modes are, I wanted to describe it and discuss it here a little bit. The game modes complement each other very well and give this game a unique identity. The ideas were fully developed and realized, and you can tell that it wasn't just tacked on. Soul Blazer has a city mode, but it works slightly different than ActRaiser 1. I don't want to spoil anything about that game, so I will leave it at that. A lot of people complained or didn't like the city mode in ActRaiser 1. SimCity came out a year before ActRaiser 1 in 1989, and I recall SimCity doing pretty well on the Super Nintendo. When it came time to make ActRaiser 2, publisher Enix instructed Quintet to scrap the city mode and just make a 100% action platformer. They also must have told them to make it hard as balls, too. ActRaiser 2 is like Super Ghouls and Ghosts with Dark Souls difficulty. The game is graphically beautiful and sounds great. It's just way too hard. If I ever play it on my channel, I will have to cheat my ass off to complete it. It may be a game I have to play on easy or skip altogether. We'll see when the time comes. Once you beat ActRaiser 1, you'll unlock professional mode on the title screen. This allows you to just play the platforming levels and skip the city mode stuff. You can't use magic, and you have no continues. Some enemies also take more damage to kill. The game gives you 5 lives and a maxed out health bar to compensate. Talk a little bit about graphics and music. Quintet games have strong art design with beautiful and colorful graphics, good use of the Super Nintendo's effects with water, shadows, etc. The backgrounds can be pretty wild looking in some areas and almost distracting, but still cool. I always liked the swirling star effects in the platforming levels of ActRaiser 1. They looked like they had a 3D funnel shape, like you were standing in a tornado of stars. The music is done by Yuzo Koshiro, who did the soundtrack for both ActRaiser games on the Super Nintendo. When he is talked about, most people always reference the Streets of Rage 2 soundtrack he did. The other Quintet games have different composers. The music in Quintet games is some of the best you will hear on the Super Nintendo. I like the orchestral sounding music with powerful organs. The chill city music is nice and fits the game. The Super Nintendo had awesome music abilities in the right hands. The soundtrack in ActRaiser 1 is a great example of music done right. Quintet games also share a lot of the same sound effects, so you may recognize certain sounds from other games. So my thoughts here. This is one of my favorite Super Nintendo games, to be sure. I'm pretty sure I owned a copy of this game back when it came out. I've always remembered this game for how well it was made and the exceptional presentation. It's hard to some degree, but a game that can be beaten with some patience. There's a lot of reading in the city mode sections of this game, so this playthrough will have normal commentary throughout. In the platforming sections, I'll be focusing on trying just to stay alive. Some information about, some helpful information, I should say, here. Links to all three things mentioned here will be in the description of the first Gameplay Part 1 video. Gameplay help document. I've written up a little help document that will be a .txt file on my Google Drive for you to reference if watching or playing for yourself. It contains information about area, progression, items, and bosses. Nothing too much of a spoiler, just kind of a little help reference. Then a population guide. When in city mode, your maximum population dictates your stats for the master when you are in platforming mode. Your score in platforming mode dictates your max population in city mode. There is a whole science to getting the max population amount in each area of the game. During my playthrough, I'm just going to be doing my best and we should be fine. In the game, I'll give you a general explanation of what I know, but even I don't understand all of it. If you are someone who is into min-maxing, then check out the population guide. And by the way, I did not write this population guide. I'm just linking to it. And a game manual. I'll provide a link to a .pdf of the game manual on my Google Drive. It has a lot of good information about the game and how to play it. As far as manuals go, this one is pretty well made too, with lots of color and pictures. It's really cool, so check it out. There is one main mod available for this game. It allows you to use CD quality music in the Super Nintendo version of ActRaiser 1. I would recommend playing it for your first time with the default music. If you replay the game again, try out the CD quality music patch. I've tested this briefly before and it worked at the time and was pretty cool. I will be playing with the normal Super Nintendo soundtrack, as that is what I remember and prefer. The link will be in the description of the first Gameplay Part 1 video as well for this patch hack, whatever you want to call it. The genre ActRaiser 1 falls into is a city building / action platformer. Some people also call it a God game. How Long to Beat says this game should take roughly 5 hours to 6 hours. It's a game that you should take your time with and enjoy the story, and which we will be doing in the playthrough. So I'll cover the few releases the game has here. So ActRaiser 1 came out on the Super Nintendo in 1990. That's the game we will be playing. Then ActRaiser 2 came out on the Super Nintendo in 1993. And then ActRaiser Renaissance, which is a remake of the first game. This came out on PC, PlayStation 4, and the Switch in 2021. ActRaiser Renaissance, as stated, is a remake of the first game in the series, and I haven't played the game myself. Despite it having a pretty good rating, I've heard and seen things about it that weren't good. I recall that a new tower defense game mechanic was added to the city mode segments. Seems like it was just a means of padding out the game and making it longer. I think there is an extra area or continent in the remake that wasn't in the Super Nintendo version. The game had frame rate issues upon release, but that is a problem in every game released these days. In my opinion, which I know you all care about and the reason you subscribe to my channel, I don't think that ActRaiser 1 on the Super Nintendo needed a remake at all. All it needed was a re-release with whatever bugs and glitches the Super Nintendo version had addressed. Remakes are nice and all, and I play them too. I'm just tired of them being the main thing coming out and driving the game industry. Sequels and new games should be primary releases, and the remakes be the secondary thing to help fund the primary stuff. I was about to go off on an electronic arts rant, but I'll save that for another time. ActRaiser 1 on the Super Nintendo is completely fine, just as it is. It's a great game, and I hope I can do some justice when presenting it to you. In the next video, we'll be getting straight into the gameplay. So thank you very much for watching and listening. I appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.